Warhammer The Horus Heresy, Eidolon The Auric Hammer by Mark Collins. Chapter 16. War of Brothers. The battle lines had fragmented. There was no front. There was not even truly an enemy any longer. No friends, no allies. Only war. Vociferon scrambled over the hull of a ruined tank and leapt down onto a pile of rubble, hunting through the murk. What had once been a mighty intersection, moving men and material from the outer defences to the city's hearts, had collapsed in on itself. The dead were everywhere, crushed by debris, sprawled across makeshift Medicae stations, or ground underfoot or under tread. Vociferon's men were all but gone, and so he hunted his prey with bestial abandon, uncaring for where they were. It was not the patient battle of the duelist anymore. He had been reduced to the barest sense of awareness, an animal cognition that spoke to some ancient reptilian hindbrain urge. One of his blades was gone, lost somewhere in the unceasing madness of war. Prey? Aleph snapped and snarled. The warrior's pristine features were racked by palsy, split with new scars where he had etched or clawed at his skin. He sniffed the air and hissed like a canid. Soon. Vociferon growled back before the red and black blindness reared up in his skull once more. He is near. He must be. He had been a fool, he realized. The sudden epiphany had swept him as surely as the muscle spasms and moments of fugue. It was as obvious as revelatory as the great column of warp fire that scraped the sky, clawing its way up from the core of the dead fortress, guided by the king's incomparable song. The wind rang with strange melodies from other times and places, weaving through into reality with wistful longing, an urge at last satiated. There had been some mechanism here. He saw that now. Something hidden behind the veil, a lock that the steady shedding of blood had loosened. Eidolon, somehow, had been the key. Now there was only the hunt, only the reckoning. Vociferon had watched, weeping behind his helm, as the first of the Dark Prince's handmaidens had appeared, bleeding from shadows and out of arches to nowhere. Hooved feet stamped at the ground as they begun their dance, weaving through half-collapsed corridors and out onto the debris-choked thoroughfares. His eyes followed their inconstant coursers, catching upon flailing fabric and pierced flesh, their violet skin marked with mutilations and violations that put the Emperor's children's best efforts to shame. Unclean light bled from their wounds and alterations, an unbiological luminescence, a wrongness wrought from iridescence. It hurt to look at them. Everything was pain. His mania was a knife drawn along his spine, flensing away the flesh and etching the bone. Much as, he realized, the demons were doing to the mortal remains that decorated the city's corpse. They set upon the bodies with claw and knife, tooth and needle, bull-headed god-things strung flayed flesh between ornaments of chiseled bone, while others coaxed bloody trees to flex and grow from the gardens of rib cages and entrails. The demonettes cooed and whispered, darting from growth to growth, claws snapping out to cleave newly formed flesh flowers from the boughs. Somewhere a bell had begun to toll, its ringing trapped within his skull, making his vision swim with nausea. Bile sang in his throat, a momentary spike of acid before he hunched forwards once more and let the growl escape his lips. Hunger joined the pain, not for the tawdry constructs of the demonic, but for the true flesh and blood. His eyes darted, chasing shadows as the fires raged above and beyond him. The warp's sick light stained everything, vying with the warring starships above. The overhead lumens had died. All light, natural and artificial, had died, only to be replaced by the unnatural. He pushed himself up by the blade tip, still hunched over, his shoulders shaking with sudden bursts of savage laughter. There were tears upon his cheeks as he wept spontaneously. He was losing control of everything. Every part of him was in utter rebellion. All that mattered was the desire, the need to indulge himself, to kill and maim and feast upon what remained. His hearing realigned and his head snapped up like that of a hunting... His hearing realigned and his head snapped up like that of a hunting dog, eager to the chase. Bolt of fire and sonic weaponry discharged nearby, drawing his attention. The night came alive with roars and screams, the howls of battle and stunted mewling as his brothers indulged themselves amidst the wreckage of the city. He had to find him, Vociferon realized. Malacrus. There were reckonings to be had. Where are you, brother? he screamed. "Come out and let us finish this." Malachus looked up from the son of Horus, who had, until quite recently, been languishing under his attentions. His claws were slick with transhuman blood, jammed through empty sockets and out of the ruptured bone at the back of the warrior's skull. He withdrew them with exaggerated slowness and looked around. The enemy lay half-slumped over an ornamental fountain, his entrails staining the water with blood and filth. Scum had begun to gather around the sea-green armor, a distasteful froth that wormed its way into every crack and wound. The scent of it was utterly delectable. Had there been time, he might have cut a flank free and feasted upon the flesh, or perhaps restrained himself to the offal like some hive nobility gourmand. There would be opportunities enough later, when the enemy were dead and all were merely chattel at his feet, when the Whispers had delivered their promises. Then there would be time for all his desires to be sated. Few obstacles remained. The world was screaming, raging and burning with the warp's fury. The Whispers turned shrill and high, Eidolon caged in fire, both legions scattered upon the wind.
"Rise and stand as a prince of war, master of the third millennial. All the old shall be swept away. Kill him, and none shall blunt your ascension."
Somewhere, Riken Bale was screaming. The warrior howled and cackled as he vaulted over a piece of ruined statuary, perching like a gargoyle atop half of an ornamental bench, clawing at it with his power fist. The madness was no longer subtle. He wore it plainly for all to see, a sign and a symbol for the others of their warband to follow. Soon there would be a true challenge, Malachus knew. Every ruler had his inheritors, and Eidolon was no different. He had carved out his place by will alone. Why should Malachus not follow in the Lord Commander's footsteps? It would not be the broken monster that Plegua was, nor the stubborn fool Vociferon. Even the equerry could be dealt with, one at a time, blow by blow and claw by claw, the curved talons flexed with need, quivering at the thought. There was a beauty and a power in betrayal. They had learned that at Istvan. Both times they had been called to the War Master's battles. Whether slaying brothers or cousins, the undertaking was still sweet. Dread Slanesh, youngest and yet eternal, had shown them the joys and delights that lay in treachery. To give in and never die. Muscles bunched and seized beneath his skin as fresh palsy swept through him. Malachus rolled his shoulders and turned from the son of Horus, who still lay dead, blinded, uncaring of the wider war that he had failed to win. Malachus would carve his way through those who opposed him, until he was so suffused with glory that even the Phoenician would take notice of him.
"There will be one more king amidst these ashes,"
he muttered to himself. He tried to signal his men again, but there was no response. The damned interference was still occluding the Vox. He strode over and seized the sides of Bale's head, forcing the madman to look at him.
"And this time," he went on, "I will rise and never fall."
Before I actually go on with my review, sorry it's taken so long to get this chapter out. I had a lot of stuff going on with real life. I went away for a holiday weekend, and then when I came back, I was just busy, bogged down in real life stuff like work and bleh. But anyway, by the time you're watching this, I should have recorded basically the rest of the book. Maybe if the chapters are quite short, so I might put out more than one a day, depending on things. Depending on how quickly I can edit and get everything, not full of outtakes. But yeah, thank you so much for your patience. I hope I'm glad to be back to it. I really liked this chapter, honestly. I've liked every chapter of this book so far, honestly. But I like that the characters are so entertaining. I feel like Vociferon, who was the most controlled, has fallen harder than anyone else, any of the other Emperor's children that we've seen. Which is, let's be honest, it's delightful to see. Like, I love Vociferon. I think he's definitely the coolest of the Emperor's children. I wonder if he's going to learn anything if he survives this experience. It's interesting that Malachus hasn't really changed at all with the exposure to the warp. He's just become more focused, it seems, more ambitious. Anyway, it was a nice little bit of nice little bit of character development for these two subordinates. It was quite a short chapter. A lot of the chapters towards the end of the book are relatively short. So we won't have any 40-minute videos again in this book, I don't think. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens if they're going to meet and try and murder each other. I mean, let's be honest, they probably will. But I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too. I'm going to be working on some paint tutorial bits next week. And then when this book is done, we'll be starting a little bit of the... We'll be starting the Caiaphas Cain omnibus. So that's my plan next time for the next book, because the Discord community vote for it. Join Discord, by the way. Also, have you checked out the podcast I did with the Pontius, Danny Fortuna? It was very cool. It was a lot of fun. We are gonna be doing a podcast on Huron Blackheart and the Red Corsairs, which should be fun. But yeah, let me know what you think. Please do like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out my streams on Twitch. I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you've probably seen some of the VODs, but come hang out. Come play video games with me every Thursday. Lol. Anyway, I love you all. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are in the world. Chapter 17 up soon, I promise. I promise. By the end of this week, pretty much all of the book should be up here on the channel. If not all of it. But yeah. Mwah.